Hi there, it's Morna, and are you curious about where industrial designers work? Well, in this video I'm going to be talking about 3 common places where industrial designers could work, and also some advice, some things to think about when you are imagining where you might work, might want to work, and what might be a best fit for you. So if that sounds of interest, then stay tuned. So there's 3 environments where an industrial designer is most likely to work. And the first one is as an in-house designer, in a consultancy, or in a startup. Now, working as an in-house designer means that you are probably working for a company that markets, sells, designs, and possibly manufactures their own products. So it could be a very large company like, Samsung, Apple, huge, Philips, multinational corporation, Nike, all of those. Or it could be a family-run business. It could be a smaller type of company that does that too. So there is kind of a range for being an in-house designer. And some of the things to think about as an in-house designer, as working as an in-house designer, are things like, are you the only industrial designer at the company? Now, this is obviously going to depend on the size of the company, but I think it's a valid question because, especially if you're just coming out of school, if you're the only industrial designer, you are going to be the only one with that perspective, the industrial design perspective in the process of developing the product. You might not have someone, a more senior person, for example, more senior industrial designer is what I really mean, to help to guide you, to ask questions. You would really be on your own to figure things out, right? And while some people might really enjoy that, like just being the only industrial designer at that company, other people might not. So I think it really depends on your personality and sort of just knowing what you're getting yourself into. Now, the other thing to think about if you are working as an in-house designer is the type of experience you're going to get. Now, again, this totally depends on the company that you work for. But if you're working for a company that specializes in like airport seating, your experience is going to be quite narrow in terms of, it's going to focus on one specific market. And I would also describe your experience, the experience that you would get would be quite deep. Because if you are only working in that one market and, what you will learn from that experience, you will know, all of those ergonomic numbers you'll know in your sleep. You will know, what airports look for in seating, as far as safety and security requirements, and you'll have first-hand knowledge of the kind of materials and processes that are used specifically for that type of seating. And so I would describe that experience as being kind of narrow because it's very focused, but also deep because it's going to be in depth. And obviously the longer you work there, the more, the deeper you will get into that, right? So that's how I would describe that experience. Now, it's a different kind of experience from, say, a consultancy. And again, I need to kind of make a little bit of a disclaimer because working at a consultancy, you are going to, it'll totally depend on the consultancy that you work for, right? Like if you work for a consultancy that, that specializes in medical equipment, that there's going to be a certain narrowness to what you're doing, it'll just be in the medical field, right? But if you work for a consultancy that does like anything or a really wide variety of things, you're going to get like this experience in a whole bunch of different markets and areas, and with all these different materials. And you know, my experience has mostly been with the consultancy, you know, I've been working for 9 years, and you know, first of all, I've worked on products that I did not even know existed in the world. And the other thing is, like, just the variety of things that I've worked on is a little bit crazy, you know, like I've worked on things as diverse as like landscape lighting, wearable tech, search and rescue devices like inflatables, to you know, consumer electronics, to the list goes on. It's kind of to like just housewares, you know, and things for the home. So I mean, it's kind of crazy, like just having this really wide, diverse experience. And the other aspect is like not knowing what is going to come through the door, which I kind of like, you know, because it kind of keeps you on your toes and you just don't know what you're going to work on next. And so there is like constantly learning about things. There is something also, and you know, maybe I am more pro consultancy because that's where most of my experience has been, but I do feel like there's something about working in a consultancy where you start to see the development of products in kind of a different way, that because you work in all these different markets, it's kind of weird how like there's these relationships between, you know, things that you would never connect before, you know, like relationships in terms of like materials and processes, and you know, these two things that are in totally different markets, but what's shared between them is like a very similar way, like a similar material and process, a way of making. And I feel like that's kind of a unique perspective and skill, and this ability to kind of link different things together, which I don't know if you know, in-house designers get that as much. I can't really say. I mean, maybe they do, and that's great too. But yeah. Working at a consultancy is that typically you will work with other designers, and you know, there is something nice about the camaraderie of like working with people who also have the same background that you do, and even though, I mean, obviously you're not always going to agree on things or have the same opinion, but just to have the same kind of overall concerns about how or just about the product development process in itself is nice, and being able to kind of riff off of each other and sort of see the product development process similarly. I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but you know, when you talk to a designer, there's a different way that designers see the world, and so it's kind of nice when you can work with other designers. So I would say with the consultancy that the knowledge and experience that you get with the consultancy is more one of kind of like, it's a more shallow knowledge in terms of like different markets. You're not going to go deep like if you were as an in-house designer. Working in a very specific market. I would say in a consultancy, your knowledge might be more shallow, but it's going to be more broad, right? So broad and shallow for a consultancy, and then for in-house designer, I would say is more narrow but deep. In general, I mean, it really depends on the place that you work at. Yeah. So then for a startup, I would say that working in a startup, you have to understand it's a startup, which means that you could be working on many different things other than your expected or normal duties. Meaning, you could work on, industrial design duties, but you could also be doing website design or graphic design or presentations or even sales or trade shows or, depending on how big this startup is, you will probably have many different hats. The other thing to keep in mind at a startup is that once the product is on the market, once you've done all of the product development, the product is on the market, typically in a startup, at that point, their main focus is selling, okay? And it's not, the priority is not, most likely not going to be on developing the second generation of that product or the next product. So you may find yourself in a situation where you don't have anything to design anymore, and you might have to do other things. So that's also something to keep in mind too with a startup. So one final thing that I wanted to say is that, no matter where industrial designers work, they do not work alone. And the nature of bringing a product to market is collaborative, and there is always a team behind every product that you see. And so as an industrial designer, you could be working, not just with your client and colleagues, but you could be working with engineers, sales and marketing people, manufacturing specialists, vendors. Yeah, so it's just always a team effort. So you're always working with people. So I think that's it. And I hope you found this video helpful. And if you have, please give it a like. And if you want to hear more videos, subscribe to my channel. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. And see you next time.